Good afternoon. The October 25th, 2022 board work session is now in order. Paul, roll call, please.
Ms. Belford,
Present.
Ms. McDougall,
Present.
Mr. Susan,
Here.
Ms. Campbell,
Present.
Ms. Jenkins.
Present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, our first topic this afternoon is a curriculum update. Dr. Stephanie Sullivan and Jane Klein, Assistant Superintendents Leading and Learning, will be presenting.
Good afternoon, Ms. Belford, board members, Dr. Mullins. Thank you for this opportunity to share some of the results from our past year, some of our efforts currently, and continuing our quest to improve student achievement. As always, I like to start off with who we are as a district, our students that we serve. Nearly 65,000 students in our traditional Brevard Public Schools. And you can see below our current racial and ethnic breakdowns. Take a look at our free and reduced lunch status. Currently, 48.2% of our students do qualify for free and reduced lunch. And of course, that's something that we keep at the forefront of our mind all the time as we work with our students and their families. Students with disabilities, currently 17.8% of our students are classified as a student with disability, and that is above the state average. Just worth noting that as well. And English language learners continues to creep up a little bit larger every year. Another bit of an increase in serving our students where English is their second language. All of this data comes from October 20th, so as you can imagine, enrollment, participation data, everything changes literally minute by minute. So we wanted to stabilize that data. So it's super close to what will be our FTE2 data. Want to highlight, of course, a really important website, particularly for our families who are viewing the board workshop and learning more and more about the resources out there to monitor student achievement and other metrics. And that is the Know Your Schools portal. The DOE has done a terrific job in the last couple of years of amplifying resources available for student achievement results as well as others. And the two main ones are, one is Know Your Schools and the other one is Know Your Data. And so the website is up there, of course, for our families. And this is where you can see a lot of information at the state level results, district level results, and of course school level results as well. A lot of folks don't realize how much additional information is available on those sites. So we like to annually refresh it for everybody because we certainly want our community invested in the performance of the student. So right off the top, just want to highlight school grade information. And you can see school year 22 side by side to school year 21. School year 21 is always a strange point of discussion. We did get results generated, but there wasn't official grade entered. So sometimes in some of the comparisons, people are skipping school year 21, but of course that's an important year of data. As you guys know, school year 20, there was no data generated, and what would be considered pre-COVID is 2019. So when we look at school year 21, that was a year, of course, that was the e-learning year, was the year where we were really in the throes of the impact of COVID. And school year 22, as you recall, a lot of challenges with quarantines and other issues that impact our school operations. I think it is important to note the substantial increase from school year 22 to school year 21 as we continue to hope and help our students and staff in recovery post-COVID. If you take a look at the ELA achievements, learning gains, social studies, acceleration, math, science, and grad rate, you can see a pretty consistent improvement across all areas. And as you guys know, we missed the A by 1 point. And I sort of think with rounding we should have got it, but I won't fight that too much. But again, it's a real testament to our school communities, and that includes our teachers, administrators, staff, and of course families and students. Really continue to prioritize their learning in what was a really difficult environment. And although, you know, I'm a stickler for more and better, I think it's really important to pause and recognize the work that was done in a really difficult year. And again, just referencing that these graphs and charts come directly from the Florida Department of Education. And so we're all monitoring really the same thing. We also have the ability with the Know Your Schools database to calculate what would be a school grade by demographic. I think Brevard was a front runner of that because we were hand calculating that. Had an opportunity to talk to the Chancellor of Education, and then the metrics are now calculated by the Department of Education, which we love. And as you guys know, it is our constant quest for all of our students with all of their differences and needs and strengths and weaknesses to be educated in a manner that is exemplary. And so we continue to look at all of the subgroups to identify where can we continue to grow. And so if you take a look by some of our most common subgroup metrics, and these are the ones that, of course, the federal government also monitors along with the state, and you look at school year 21 compared to school year 22, and again, you'll see a really significant increase, in my opinion, a significant increase across the board for all of our students. And again, that's important. We want to make sure all of our students are benefiting from initiatives and programs and efforts that we put in place. And so as you can see, from our economically disadvantaged students to our students in transition, to our students with disabilities, to our students of color, all of the student groups are showing improvement over the year before. And that, of course, is really important, particularly when we know the impact, the disproportionate impact, particularly on our students with economic challenges within their family. So work to be done, but work in the right direction. And we think that's important. And so just to give you a breakdown with further detail. So what this is showing you is those same main subgroups and their 2 years of results across all of the areas of oversight. And this is where you can see kind of the nuts and bolts of where we grew. Something that we've really keyed in on with our schools are those learning gains. You know, yes, we know that students are struggling and some of the metrics may not be where people want it, but we want students to show growth and increase our learning gain percentages. And so I'll give you a moment to take a look at the ones on this slide. You can see by our African American students, our Hispanic students, our white students. Again, growth in nearly every cell. And so, you know, when you go through all of the ones that are there, you know, in some cases similar, and in some cases you'll see significant growth. I do want to mention middle school acceleration, college and career, and grad rate include lag data, meaning most of middle school acceleration is from industry certifications from the year prior, and current for the students in math. It's a strange little formula. So it's half lag, half current. College and career and grad rate are both lag rate years. So those two operate a year behind. So for college and career, I expect this year to show a boost in, which would reflect last year's college and career rate. If that makes sense. And then moving on to our students with disabilities, how we're serving those students and how we're amplifying student achievement in that area, and then followed by our economically disadvantaged students. Again, I want to give you a moment to take a look at those and pause for any questions on this initial data. And just a point of emphasis again, this all comes from that state database. For any of our families that might want to look at different comparisons and different combinations of scores. And so another one that I wanted to highlight, and it's certainly been a topic of conversation as of late, is just the importance of our teachers. You know, academic excellence is obviously a big part of our strategic plan, And I wanted to highlight this part of it as it relates to educating our students and the importance of experience. Again, these are state-generated comparisons, so just, again, sometimes there's a little confusion on who's generating the data. This is coming directly from the state databases. And so in Objective 2, we're focusing on high-quality teachers because that's where the magic happens. We all know that, right? We all know that there is nothing more important than that special relationship between a teacher and their students and the importance of experience in growing one's skill set. And so a couple of the interesting comparisons that the state puts together is comparisons by classrooms with high poverty rates and those with higher minority rates. And this is all also on that Know Your Schools database. And so if you take a look at the left-hand column, you'll see the inexperienced teachers rating. So they take the schools and put them in buckets, basically of high poverty, mid-range poverty, and low poverty, and then identify the percentage of inexperienced teachers in those spaces. And again, we do have targets in our strategic plan to improve some of those outcomes with our experienced workforce. And so if you take a look at 1920 and then take a look at 2021, this is lag year data. We don't have 21-22 yet. But considering 1920, the majority of the year was a traditional year, some of the data improvements in 2021 is, again, a real hurrah to those teachers that persevered through those really difficult times. And you're going to hear Jay and I both over and over again really applauding the work from our teachers and school-based staff. And so as you can see, our ratios of inexperience are significantly below the state average. And I know there's been additional metrics produced that indicate the experience of our teachers compared to others. I just want to point out the percentage of teachers serving in that capacity, our ratios are certainly better than the state ratio. And I think we know that and value our experienced teachers. If you look over to the right, you're going to see those comparisons for schools rated by the DOE as high minority, mid-range minority, and low minority. And I'll let you take a look and see that data there as well. Again, I'm going to be monitoring it relentlessly for 21-22 data. Not sure when they're going to produce it, but I'll certainly shoot that information out to the board once it comes. And actually, it'll probably be in our strategic plan updates.
Dr. Sullivan,
Yeah,
question.
please.
What is the cutoff point for inexperienced teacher definition by the state?
Excellent question. 4 years. And so they consider 4 years or less inexperience. And I say that because they have a little explanation of that on your Know Your Schools website. So I'm confident that they use that metric, and I thought somebody might ask that question. And then the second one is out of field. And this is looking at those two same categories as measured by the percentage of teachers out of field. And I imagine your eyes are going directly to the bottom right. And I'm in discussion with Dr. Thede on, did we report differently? Something feels off, correct? Just, I always go with the gut sense on what we've seen and change. So Dr. Thede is going to continue to review that data and how that data was reported to the DOE and check for accuracy. But in transparency, I wanted to present it to you because it was reported by the DOE. So I have shared that with her, and she's going to continue to look at it. Because obviously a number like 67% out of field is alarming and certainly something we're looking into. So again, these are all the reasons I like data, because data paints a picture, tells us what to look deeper into, what to look further into, and did we make any data reporting errors? So we're going to be taking a look at those things further. Just wanted to mention that before you panic. So this is some very new, interesting comparisons. That's a little hard to see, and I'm going to talk you through it. As I mentioned, the state is really doing an incredible job of producing more and more analytics that make it easier for families, teachers, staff. We're using the same analytics that a family would. This is a set of data produced by Focus. So we have found that Focus has a module that looks at state analytics. And if I'm not mistaken, we have it kind of temporarily right now. But these were some interesting comparisons. They've done some regressions of correlation analysis, looking at a couple of factors, particularly economic disadvantage and race. So as we're looking at the different data, what role are those playing in the outcomes of our students? And then again, how can we sort of change that narrative? So when you look at a regression like this, it generates what we call the line of best fit, meaning how they're clustering in a line and what is falling sort of above the line of best fit and below the line of best fit, meaning sort of outperforming what predictive analytics would tell you or underperforming what predictive analytics would tell you. And in the website, we can actually see the specific schools. We did this analysis by state as well because it helped us find outliers to go visit and check in with. And in some of cases, our schools are positive outliers where they are outperforming what predictive analytics would suggest for student results. And so if you take a look, both of them, their correlation coefficient is indicating a very strong correlation. And in this case, negative correlation. And negative not in terms of positive or negative like good attributes, but in terms of how the two data indicators are relating to each other. If you take a look at below, you can see just some additional references to our Title I schools and our economically disadvantaged and minority schools, and how those data are influenced by the circumstances of the schools. You know, it is our goal, and almost every meeting I've been at, and Jane as well, we want to beat the line of regression. We want to beat the line of best fit. We don't want predictive analytics to be able to determine the outcome of our student achievement. When you look at that one to the right, even though it is a strong correlation, you see some really strong outliers above the line of best fit. Now, there's always going to be some below and above because that's the nature of the data. So then we also look at it at a state level and see where Brevard Public Schools is falling. So we continue to use those regression analysis to understand the predictive nature of certain factors in generating outcomes. And I love data and statistics, if you can't tell. And so anytime someone produces another one, we get really excited about it. Any questions on this one? You could just holler.
I do that a lot, trying to go to a different tactic. Yeah, I gotta do that too. So down in the lower right-hand corner of that last slide, and now it just disappeared on me because they've got us up here. Can you explain that last piece? It says, it shows the economic disadvantage by school grade A, B, C, D, and then minority by school grade A, B, C, D. Is that a stronger correlation that the economic disadvantage shows stronger C and D grades than the minority? Like, what's going on there?
What it's indicating to us is what the economic percentage is on a scale by school grade. So if you look at to the left, those schools that generate an A have a lower percentage of economic disadvantage. In that score, the D is a really strong difference. Sure. And a lot of students with disadvantage. So our scores, we had 2 schools that scored a D. Those have an extremely high percentage of students with economic disadvantages. Similar with minority, as you can see, the economic disadvantage is a pretty high correlator. And so, which is also why Title I is so important. Some of, what we've done with ESSER is really important to amplify resources in those spaces.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that whoever
question.
saw that could see it. Thank you.
And I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Klein, who's going to take you through some additional current data.
Good afternoon. So as we looked at last year's FSA data, now we want to look at who are our students right now. So we take the FSA data, put it in Performance Matters, and then it gives us our students that are today. So if you look at our English language arts data, these are students who are currently in 4th through 12th grade because they took the FSA in 3rd grade. So these are our students, our current students, and where they are. So we take this data and work with our directors and our resource teachers to determine where we need to best work in our schools. Where are our gaps? So that helps us through the summer as we're working on different projects to look at, okay, look, we need some more work with integration of knowledge and ideas. So what tools can we give? What tools can we provide? So as we look through each of these, so our percent, level 3, almost 25% are level 3. In math, well, we know we've really struggled in math. And functions continues to be a concern. So what do we need to do with functions? And this needs to start in kindergarten. And so what do we need to build on? Where are our gaps? What do we need to do to improve that? So all this data is reviewed with our entire Leading and Learning team so we can make plans for supporting our schools and supporting our teachers. What training do our teachers need to be able to provide this to our students? Civics, one of our greatest strengths in Brevard is our civics and our history. Look at that. Level 5, 20s is our best level of performance. So when you look at this, we're doing well. And we continue to strive with history and civics being great performance areas in Brevard. And that's our teachers. That's the work they're doing. They're bringing the work alive in the classroom. And we know, all of us know, that the better we experience learning, the easier it is for us to understand. So when we bring history alive, we bring civics alive, and if we look at science, when we bring that experiences to the classroom, our students become more engaged in the learning. Our teachers, there's a level of relationship and energy in that classroom when you see the hands-on experiences. That, although more difficult in ELA and math, we can present those types of learning strategies. So this is all data that we continue to review, continue to work with our team, and then with our biology scores. As we look at all this data, then we pull it all together into what our work is. About 7 years ago, we developed the vision for excellent instruction. Was it 5? I think we began working before you got up here, because I think I've been working on this for a long time. So we looked at what buckets are so critical for our students to succeed, and our teachers, the classroom layout. So lessons that are consistently focused on complex content that are appropriately challenges students to meet the subject and or grade level standard. Students who are supported to engage fully in the work of a lesson and to be responsible for doing the thinking that the lesson demands. We talk about that student engagement. A classroom that we see a teacher as a facilitator, where students feel a sense of belonging and connected to the work. Learning environments that are safe, are welcoming, and encourage students to take risks necessary to master the content. So we want that sense of belonging and relationship in the classroom where our students can engage and feel comfortable and safe in the engagement. Teachers who are intentionally planning and facilitating the learning through the use of high-quality, standard-aligned materials, monitoring data, and collaborating with their school community. You've probably heard me say it, I don't even know how many times, about high-quality instructional material. We have now adopted ELA and math instructional material that are aligned to the standards. State-approved, aligned to standards that support the best standards and support the learning that should be occurring in the classroom. We know that these instructional materials are a challenge, but we're providing the support to our teachers to continue to work on this. We want our students to be the #1 in the nation. That Dr. Sullivan and I both want to be #1 at everything. And we know we're not always, but we try. And we want our teachers, we want our students to be able to thrive anywhere. The world is theirs, and we want to make sure that our classrooms are allowing that to happen. So we know the importance of that intentional planning, that collaborative planning, that getting feedback from the community of what the school needs. That all goes hand in hand with the Vision for Excellent Instruction. Students who are demonstrating that they are learning the content and applying their learning to new concepts and real-world problems. We know that experience matters. We know that quality instruction with using quality instructional material, that all makes a difference in the lives of our children. But all of this, we have to continue to monitor the data and look at what the data is telling us. We have to continue to improve our craft, each and every one of us. Our craft only improves if we're lifelong learners. We have to learn, our teachers have to learn, our students have to learn, and we have to be on that same path to be learners always in everything we do. So this vision for excellent instruction continues to be our driving force in what should go on in the classroom. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see the links to the ELA standards and the Math Best standards. We, as part of Leading the Learning, are also curriculum instruction, and part of that work goes on not only during the school year, but during the summer. So we're going to both spend some time going through what's part of our work. So in elementary, this was a screenshot of the web page. You can see the list of the different links, but on the bottom, you can connect to any component of our instructional paths. So you can go straight into our ELA, our math, science. You can see what the pacing guides look like, what the work is. Our work is focused on supporting the classroom. And as long as we're supporting the classroom, we're supporting not only the student, but the teacher. And that's our purpose, student achievement. That student outcomes is where we're at. So as we work through supporting our schools, this is the beginning of that, or the end result of that. So just some snippets of some of the things that are on our website. As you can see, we have a link to the social studies. That civics and U.S. history scores, although we don't measure it in elementary, it starts right there. It starts with the hard work and the, kindergarten. What does a community look like, right? It's a fireman, and it's it's all those components of a kindergarten classroom that begins that story of what civics and history. Our elementary science page and how we can connect. Each one of these links gives a teacher or a parent an insight into what's going on in the classroom. Our our content specialists have developed daily lesson plans to guide any of our teachers and help with the new curriculum. So you can have the guide actually times of the day when you should be doing this or should be doing that. We've provided that additional support to our teachers, so it helps them in planning. It's not a script. It is a guide to help you as you're planning your day. These are some supports along the way. The same thing with our math. I'm sorry, the middle one is really small, but there's PDFs of every part of Reveal, the new math program Reveal. You can click on those links, and as a teacher, you can see different components. How to use a lesson, how to use the teacher's manual to help guide you. The kindergarten Reveal math. Here's a lesson plan of all the components that need to be addressed. What are math talks? What can be had in math terms? I love math is beautiful. If you've not met our Shruti Raman, who is our content specialist, she believes math is the center of the universe, right, Dr. Mullins? And it is, and it is, and it is. Many people do not or did not realize that we still have what your child is expected to learn in first grade, second grade, kindergarten. The links are here for any parent. We can print this off. If a parent comes into school and says, I really want to know, we can print it off for them, or they can look at it at home. There's links to absolutely everything to help support your child at home or at school. Also, components of elementary reading and learning, you all know the Head Start. The ability for us to offer Head Start to our students who are perhaps the most to be struggling. If you were able to go out and watch any of the dental programs, it's absolutely, Ms. Belford is smiling at me because I got so excited that one day I was going to go watch. And it is so amazing to watch them get their pictures taken of their teeth, and they get to see the teeth. And then our component of Thrive by 5. The videos that GCR has helped Priscilla Danino make, how to read with your child, how to read to a baby. I mean, if nothing makes you happier, if you ever have a bad day, just go on the Thrive by 5 webpage, and it will make you happy. Also, a component is our VPK and our Title I program. As you know, we put our VPK in Title I schools because the state only funds a portion of the day for VPK. We use Title I funds to pay the other portion of the day to have a full day program. And to me, a full day VPK program is wonderful opportunity for our students. We also we also are responsible for the Brevard Aftercare program. And that component of the 21st Century Learning, where it's an extension of the day for students to get additional tutoring through a certified teacher. We've hired a wonderful content specialist that helps our teachers with developing lesson plans for that after-school tutoring program. And then another component is our open enrollment and parental choice platform that supports all the districts. So these are some of the components, but the work that goes into providing the support to our schools is amazing. And when you look at what is your child expected to learn, and you can get all that at a fingertip. And if I'm a teacher and I'm struggling with how to teach this new Math Reveal program, it's all there right on the website. Some of the information is site for BPS employees only, and some is open for all. I want to spend a few minutes, many of you have seen this, as I shared with the BPS Vision for Excellent Instruction. We took it to the next level of what does that look like? How will I know that a student is engaged in the work? What does it look like, and how can I monitor that? So we took this with a group of principals and made it a look for our principals when they're walking classrooms to help a teacher, to provide that coaching. Because we're all instructional. We're all teachers, but we also have to coach. Because we want to provide the best instruction for every child. And how do we do that? We coach. We coach our teachers. We coach our principals. And so as we continue to do this work, we want to, again, perfect our craft for providing more opportunities for our principals and our teachers. As we look at our data, we determine how we're going to support. You know that we have 2 schools under Bureau of School Improvement, Endeavor and Creel. I was actually on a conference call this morning with the Bureau of School Improvement, and kind of laughed because it was the fastest meeting I've ever attended, because they were like, you are right on track. Not everything we're doing is right. They could give us no suggestions. And I was like, oh, never had a Bureau of School Improvement meeting where there wasn't suggestions of you need to do this, you need to do that. It was very, very strange, actually, but it was really nice to hear that we're doing the right work and the state leads see that work. They've been on our walks of our school. I'm sure you're aware that we, at both of those schools, we have to track student attendance rates, employee attendance rates, all the early warning signals, and we have to provide those uploads every quarter to the DOE. So that we're finishing up this one, and we'll be sending that to them. We have to monitor VAM scores, not Brevard VAM, but state VAM. And so we are moving right along with both Endeavor and Creel at this time. But our directors work in teams based on what our schools need. So if you can see the sample of Tara and Maryland, the schools that they're paired up for are schools that Tara is the lead. It's her responsibility. She's the principal supervisor. But the supporting director, it's not Tara with Maryland every time. It's Tara with Maryland. It's Tara with Wendy. Wonder why? Well, it's because what the school needs and the strength of the other director and how they can marry together to provide that school with that support. These walks, unless there's a state of emergency, they continue because it is so important that we collect that data. And as I've shared with you before, the Brevard Year at a Glance for our priority schools, the YAG, we add that data so we know what to look for when we're going back. This data is shared with me after every walk. I look at it, see where our growth areas, where our needs for additional support, where our content specialists need to go in and support. As we go through all the different data points, our content specialists are right there monitoring it and making goals along the way to support the schools. So this is just a sample of some of the walks and what's going on in each one of those schools. And I think it's your turn.
You know, what Mrs. Klein was talking about was a continuous cycle of improvement. We take our data, we look at our strengths and weaknesses, we look at it by benchmark, by standard, by detail, and adjust our curriculum accordingly and our resources for teachers. These last couple of years have been a little extra difficult because, as you know, we have changed standards prior to changing assessment. So there's been that weird process that we're coming close to an end on that process with FAST this year, and I'll talk about that in a second. But transparency and partnership is the most important thing to our work. We want parents working with us, teachers working with us, teachers collaborating with each other. And that's why we want to take a moment to highlight these resources. I get questions throughout the year from families, community members, about our curriculum, about our resources. So we thought it was important, as Jane showed where to get to her, show where to get to secondary as well. Again, we put everything online because we believe it's important to get feedback from everyone. So if you went to the secondary leading and learning site, it would look very similar, except not as cute as elementary. And you would go to curriculum resources. And then right away, you can see a link to the full curriculum package of work done by Brevard teachers. And that is the important emphasis. Our teachers looking at data, looking at resources, looking at student performance, and identifying really best practices and successful sequencing of curriculum. And I'm just going to show you a couple examples. We rolled out a new English curriculum in response to the new English standards as a result of course, the state and district review. And this is already current and updated. So I pulled up 9th grade English, and right away I'm able to see the key constructs of the curriculum, what the expectations are, suggested resources, right down to even recommended texts. So as those questions come up, we certainly want partnership, students, families, teachers working together to identify best resources. If I go to U.S. history, social studies is one that we always get a lot of questions on. As a social studies teacher myself, I love social studies questions, so I'm always really excited to get them when our community and families are inquiring about the curriculum. And I just pulled up from the social studies site the U.S. history link, and just again showing a couple examples of guides, primary resources as much as possible. We love primary resources, and how teachers can support students in that work. So it's not only about making data-informed instructional decisions, it's about being transparent and in partnership, but it's also about arming our teachers with the best available with the less stress on them. So right now we have teachers coming in with various levels of experience, all with potential and promise and commitment to kids, but may benefit from, oh my gosh, it's all right there. Okay, I don't have to panic about that this year. And that they know they're using high quality instructional materials where teachers together vetted these lesson plans. So now more than ever, it is really important for us to continue this work to make sure all of our teachers have the best tools at their fingertips. So these were just a couple examples. We encourage people to explore those resources. Let us know if there's a broken link. You know, we do our best with web design. But again, we keep putting everything online for our community. Jane referenced our work with our priority schools, and you just wanted to touch upon that a little bit. One of the things we did this year, which was like a big aha, that we should be using our same vocabulary of Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. And so really identifying the strategies that are good for all students. Consistent opportunities to work on grade-appropriate assignments. If you researched anything, that would come up times 1,000 as really one of the most important strategies for our kids. And of course, students doing the heavy thinking and the deep engagement. So these are things that we're working with all of our schools on, all of our school leaders on, and of course our teachers are already there conceptually. We're just trying to give them more tools that they can use efficiently and not have to spend a ton of time, diving for. As we go into Tier 2 and Tier 3, our Tier 2 schools and students, and particularly our Tier 3, they need more, they need different. And so as Ms. Klein referenced, there's a couple of different things that we do. Of course, there's some additional staff in our schools, more instructional coaching. Again, the research and data is pretty clear on the impact of instructional coaching. Additional academic support funds to provide more opportunities for families and students to work before school, after school, Saturdays, and of course coordinated planning with our schools and our staff. And I've had an opportunity to have all of those one-on-one meetings with our schools already this year, and it's been really incredibly productive having the entire room on the table. What you'll see here, this is literally this week. So this is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. When we go and meet with the schools and the school leaders, they identify and we identify together areas for support, strength, what are they looking for, and we book them and prioritize those schools with our limited time and energy. We keep saying content specialists, plural. That's really a generous term. It's really a singular term. And so prioritizing their time, of course, is really important as we're trying to get maximum benefit for our schools that need it most. But as you can see, they're pretty busy every single day targeting some of those needs. Before I go into FAST Portal, and we are FAST fans of FAST, which the last time we were here, we were a little uncertain, wanted to take a moment for any questions on the curriculum and data presented thus far.
Board members, you have questions? Ms. Campbell?
Quick, one question and then a comment. Ms. Klein, the daily lesson plans, do we have those for the Math Reveal new instructional materials like we had for Benchmark, with the timing out and do step 1 to step 2, step 3 type thing?
Yes, all that is available. Daily lesson plans as a sample for any teacher who needs them.
Okay. And then the comment is this, and I bring it up because it's something that there's some trigger words in here. The slide with the 4 colorful boxes. One of the things says, in the yellow box, the third point said, classrooms celebrate learning and trying versus being right. And so because people don't always sit and contemplate the meaning of the whole statement, I just wanted to make the point that it's not that we're teaching our students that they can get the wrong answer and it's okay to be wrong, but it's okay. What we're celebrating is you tried, because if they don't have that sense of taking risks, like why are we talking about taking risks in math? But it is a risk, and of course I think, because I was a middle school teacher, along the lines of middle schools, and for middle schoolers, just opening your mouth is taking a risk. So, but that idea of we're celebrating that you learned something, and even in failing you learned. It's not that all of a sudden we're going to say, oh, we did 2 + 2 and you got 5. Yay, 5 is now the right answer. No, but yay, you put yourself out there and you work through the process. Now let's see if we can't correct it. So I just wanted to bring that out, because frequently that idea is very misunderstood and misinterpreted.
Yes, it aligns to that risk-taking environment, exactly what you said. That's where we're going.
May I speak? I want to say that slide 26 is the best slide that I've seen here. It reminds me and takes me back to the classroom when I was teaching a lot of the Roaring Twenties and everything else, the land booms, the speculation. Dr. Mullins and I were talking earlier about how some of the lesson plans that I did would probably get me kicked out of the school system today, but back then it was student engagement, right? But I did want to take one instance and say thank you to you guys as we're moving through this. One of the things that many people look at this and they say, wow, these are great resources and all that stuff. That's the first step of it. The second step is actually getting the teachers to engage in it. And I know how hard that is, being a former teacher, and you have certain teachers that actually, when I was there, weren't even opening up their emails, and the secretary would have to go put special emails inside their box and all that stuff. So thank you so much for setting the guidance and getting this set up in the direction we're going, but then also for the other grind that nobody sees about getting our masses to move towards utilizing these resources at the best. So thank you. I just want to take a second and say thank you.
Yeah,
And whoever put slide 26 together, you can say thank you to them too.
Well, I just copied and
Was
pasted
it
it
you?
from my
That
social
was
studies
you?
resource
There it
teacher, so
is.
I don't get
It's a
the credit.
Special one right there.
It's
That's a good
literally-
one.
Again, we didn't want to manufacture anything. We wanted to show the actual resources. I do think it's worth noting that, differentiation and working with teachers is also important. We recognize that some teachers may need more or less support, more resources and not support. So both Ms. Klein and I want to be clear, we're not talking about scripted. We're talking about things available for you that were generated by Brevard teachers and highlighting to make easy, quick decision-making for you in these really difficult times. Thank you, Mr. Suzanne.
Yeah, in 2008, I was part of the team that started putting together all of those curriculum guidelines
That's great.
because we were moving in. And that's when I found out some of my lesson plans weren't so engaging from the other teachers. But Katie's still living here.
Unorthodox
So
might be.
one time during that lesson that you just saw, I used to block up all of the air conditioning units and bring space heaters in. And I'd heat my room up to 110 degrees and force the kids to do supply chain, sweatshop. And they loved it.
Okay,
I
so we're
never
going to
had-
stop at sweatshops.
But they learned.
No, we History Live is a popular curriculum in that space. We love anything that brings, almost anything, Mr. Susan, that brings like creative hands-on engagement in curriculum. We think that's really important. There's a lot of great ways to do that.
It is. I just wanted to say
Sweatshop,
thank
maybe
you.
not so much.
No, it's a good one. It's a good one.
So, but jumping off of that, these resources, when we've got so many new teachers and we're pulling in from right and left, I'm thinking about Mr. Alba, are we advertising, hey, come work for us? And when you step in, we have, there will still be some creative abilities, but we're going to have what you need.
Yeah.
And I saw Buddy on the screen.
I
You know,
so
they're
appreciate
wonderful.
that question. One of the things that we started maybe 4 years ago was a curriculum symposium. And so every year, the day prior to teachers reporting, we bring in all the new teachers with our content specialists to go over these resources. That way, before they step on campus for day one, they've already had exposure. Our school secretaries keep our staff current when they hire new ones, and then our folks work deliberately with them. And so we really really think it's important to be connecting to our new teachers, showing them these curriculum resources so they don't start going in all these other directions and absorbing time that they don't have, you know? And so, yeah, we connect with them every year in the fall and then ongoing throughout the school year as well. All of our content specialists know our new guys, they're your number one friends. We want them to have a relationship with their content specialist so they can quickly ask questions.
Just to add to that, I was meeting with a content specialist earlier this morning who was going out. We just hired another new teacher, and she just was going to walk through ELA. She'd spent an entire day planning with her. The principal was able to get a planning day for that new teacher. She'd spent an entire day planning. And I have 2 ELA content specialists. So one was had given 1 day for planning, and today she was going out to observe and give feedback and then help coach later. The other thing I wanted to add is I've been working very closely with TPG, the Cultural Exchange Program, and getting those interviews set up. And one of the components of that is access to our curriculum prior to them starting. So we're in that conversation with them as well.
Anyone else? I just have a couple. Ms. Jenkins, you good?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Dr. Sullivan, on going all the way back to the beginning when we looked at who we are, just 2 questions on that. Our students with disabilities and our free and reduced lunch, are those numbers increasing or decreasing? I know we've had lots of conversation about the % of our students that are ESE for a lot of years.
They're super close to last year, and in fact, I printed it out and had it on my hand because I'm like, somebody's going to ask me last year's data. They're within about a percentage point. So they jog a little down and a little up, all within probably a plus minus of 1, maybe 1.5. So pretty similar patterns.
And then on the slide with our out-of-field teachers, and I know we're digging into this, and this may not be able to be addressed, but it seems strange to me, and maybe I'm just looking at it incorrectly, that we would have that many out-of-field teachers, but not that many inexperienced teachers.
We literally just had that conversation. And again, those are all triggers that tell us something is amiss. But again, we felt it was important. The state reported it that way. We felt it was important to share it. I always put data through a couple of intuitive tests, and it doesn't pass intuitive tests. When I look at what our high minority schools are and what I know their out-of-field rates were, there's definitely something amiss. And so we will definitely keep the school board updated on that. Ms. Klein, I literally just had that conversation. And I'm going to be curious when school year 22 comes in. And so those are all things we're monitoring closely. Dr. Theddy is aware and working with her team and sharing that. But just in disclosure, we wanted to share it even though it was a little icky.
And so for our public, can you kind of explain the out-of-field teacher?
Sure. So when a teacher is a qualified teacher, but perhaps hasn't completed a component for a specific area. For example, I was a social studies teacher. If I wanted to teach English, I could assess in English to become certified. And so sometimes our teachers may begin out of field as they complete their requirements or turn things in to add that out of field. What I suspect, if you were to ask my hypothesis, I suspect this is related to ESOL. Because there is a requirement that even though I'm a teacher in a classroom and I'm English certified, an endorsement for ESOL is necessary and is triggering an out of field. And so sometimes, and whether I still have somebody who requires those services or not. So my hypothesis, with no information, is that there's a story there and how that data was reported. So somebody can only be out of field if they are credentialed as a teacher, like they have a base certification as a teacher and are sometimes exploring another area. A very common one that we work with a lot are English teachers who are trained English teachers and doing reading. Obviously that's a supernatural correlation, and so a lot of our reading classes are taught by English teachers who have to, by state law, add some additional components to their certificate. So they're typically in that space. Sometimes we'll get our engineers that come in and their base certification is math, highly qualified to teach physics. They simply have to sign up for the test, get that done, and a lot of them diminish as the year goes on. But they're typically somebody that's naturally skilled in an area adding a certification.
Would that include our career and technical education teachers?
It would, but there's very few career and technical education that are out of field, because in career and technical education,
be
we
in
can
it.
certify on work experience. And we can only do that in career and technical education. So this, I would suspect, represents very few career and technical education teachers, because there is state ability to work with work experience. And so there's not that many that this would fall in that bucket, but it does happen sometimes.
Super.
The reading endorsement for elementary could have impacted this as well.
Yeah.
Because that's new.
That was the year that a K-6 elementary teacher, in doing reading intervention, had to have completed their endorsement. Some weren't in it. Again, all of these are X factors that we're going to dig into. I know from a traditional sense, our schools that are high minority, they don't traditionally represent out-of-field teachers, so that's why it's kind of puzzling.
There's the correlation in many of our high poverty schools, high poverty schools are also sometimes high minority, and that graph on the left-hand side doesn't match.
Right.
So.
I suspect we're going to hear of the error at some point as we dig deeper, and we'll continue to monitor and share that with the board.
Thank you, appreciate that explanation. Anybody else before we move into FAST?
Okay, I'm super excited about this part. I'm probably the only one in the state of Florida excited about FAST. So last time Mrs. Klein and I were up here, we shared what we knew about FAST. Actually, it was Ms. Francis, our director, shared what we knew about FAST. And if the board recalls, we were quite concerned about what the state was reporting as limited information. And I'm pleased to say that that's not the case. So just as a primer for those that are listening, FAST is our new state assessment to include progress monitoring. So if our viewing members recall and the board recalls, the state has sunsetted FSA and moved into FAST in response to the changing of the standards. So this is now the assessment that matches the new standards. So this year, everything should match, which is pretty exciting. So our students and families have access to a lot of information. So I've put this front sheet on here, this front sheet along with the website, because there's actually a parent portal and a student portal, and we encourage our families to go into it. It's actually just right under students and families. When you click on it, a parent can have their own access, and that's pretty cool too in terms of transparency and demystifying what students are being assessed on. And so we just completed the first progress monitoring of this new FAST system. And again, I'm super excited about the results that we get, because it is progress monitoring on the same assessment that's going to count for the high stakes part. And the state of Florida's never had that before, so we're really super thankful. So if you take a look at this screen, and I'm going to show you a couple of the different reports that we can look at. You can see under reading each of the grade levels. You can see the number of students tested. So as you can see, we average between around 5,500 and 6,000 students a grade band. So intuitively, those numbers look good. Average score doesn't mean a lot to us right now, because you need a stabilizing year for that average score to have context. But you can see the bands of students' performance on this first assessment. I do want to remind the board of when Ms. Francis's presentation that it is anticipated for it to be a much lower performance, because it's measuring the end of the year mastery. And so a parent shouldn't panic if their child is normally in a certain space and not there yet, because this is intended to be representing where they are today. And as you can see, we can see those by grade band. So if I click on a grade band, this is an example of 7th grade, I believe. I now see that same information by school. So I can see overall how the school is doing. And what is also pretty cool is you see the state and the district. Because remember, everybody in the state took this same progress monitoring tool. So we've never had that quality of comparison before. So for example, if I took a look at some of those schools, I can say, okay, compared to the district, this is where my students are. Compared to the state, this is where my students are, and the bands that they are performing. That's just the beginning of it, though. If you look to the right, you'll see the 3 main strands. I'm calling them strands. I'm not really sure what the state calls them yet, but the 3 main strands that are making up fast reading. And that's reading across genres and vocabulary, reading informational text, and reading prose and poetry. What you see to the right is I expanded reading across genres and vocabulary. So now I can see all those subcategories like comparative reading, context and connotation, interpretive figurative language, and morphology to understand the strengths and weaknesses. The coding looks a little strange, but again, I'm fast friends and love it so. So in that proficiency column, you're going to see a check, an X, or that half circle situation they have going on there. And a check is telling you that the students in that school are by and large proficient in context and connotation. So for example, in Brevard Virtual Franchise, you see a check mark in context and connotation. You'll see a plus after it, and that's telling you this is a strong point for the students in this school. So as an instructor, as a leader, this is telling me where A, I want to amplify strengths, and B, where to find my weaknesses. And so that I can use this information to make instructional decisions moving forward for students. If I expanded reading informational text, reading prose and poetry, you would see that same great level of detail. And in my tier 2 and tier 3 conversations with our principals, we were able to really narrow down, you are disproportionately struggling in this space. How are you curricular addressing that, as opposed to being overwhelmed by the entirety of struggling readers? And so the information is actually giving us really substantial detail. If I go on, let's say I wanted to click on one of those schools, and this is one of those schools, I'm now going to see each and individual class. So you can see this teacher's 1st period class, this teacher's 7th period class. So when I was working with one of my tier 2 schools, we then drilled down by class and by cluster, and then you're seeing that same information. And right away, you can see differences in performances, and again, really maximizing your effort to improve instruction. And then you can go and see it by student. So if you clicked on the teacher in period 1, I'm now seeing by student. And then it's the same thing. It's going to go across each of those 3 strands and tell me that student's strengths and weaknesses. And what's really cool is it actually shows you question 1, the student got right, question 2, the student got wrong. Like it's that detailed right down to the original, right down to the question. And so another column you might notice is that percentile rank. And this is something that is an interesting tool for the parents and the teachers as well, because that percentile is generated from the entire state administration. So against all 7th graders who took this first progress monitoring tool, this is where that student's percentile is. Parents have access to all of this information in Focus. And so, and it is also in their individual portal, and the letter they should have received from their school, hopefully by now, and it gives them that details. The percentile is likely not on the letter because the state just generated it, but you could go in your child's focus and look at their test history and actually see that information. So again, if you recall, we were originally kind of nervous. We were like, this isn't going to give us enough information based on what the state told us. Obviously, they wanted to underpromise and overdeliver, which I appreciate that strategy. And so the state really put out some fantastic information. The teachers themselves have access directly into the portal. So our schools right now are finishing that training. So for example, at Madison Middle School, the English teachers are being trained in how to use the portal, how to use those patterns, how to adjust instruction, and information is going out to the parents. And so our staff is able to look at them. So now when we go and do a subsequent, let's say, Tier 3 meeting, my staff has already looked at what are the strengths and weaknesses at this school so that we're doing the right things and we're not amplifying the things that we don't need to amplify. Although amplifying strengths is also a good strategy, we just want to make sure we're targeting the right thing. So again, really pleased at the transparency of it, really pleased that parents, teachers, school administrators can all access this information and help students in targeting their growth. So currently working with schools on all of that information.
I noticed on the state, one thing that's different now from before is because of doing a progress monitoring, everybody's doing the same thing. We have this for our K through 2 also, right? Even though
We are getting to that.
Theirs will not count in our statewide grade.
It's like 3 slides away.
All right, okay, I'll hold my
Because I know
question.
nothing about K2, so I can't help it all there.
But there's even like a pre-K thing.
3
and you
slides
can take
away.
like the sample tests and everything.
Yep,
you know.
yep. So again, that FAST portal is a wealth of information, and we certainly encourage our parents, again, to walk alongside us and become experts in this material. Very quickly, just showing you a similar example in math. I'm not going to drill all the way down because we've already shown that example. But again, the same thing. We can look at right away. 8th grade math, as you can imagine, is giving me some palpitations. I do have a little disclaimer. As you see, there's only 22 students assessed because our algebra and geometry kids are not assessed on FAST. So this is, by definition, testing only the students that are not level 3 students. And so that 8th grade math is slightly disproportionate, and in fact, 7th grade a little bit lower because of our students who are doing algebra. It is my hope, now that I see the quality of FAST, that they add algebra and geometry to the platform as they roll out the new FAST algebra and geometry. But right now, it's still not connected, although we begin the new algebra and geometry in January. So hopefully that will come along with it. But again, you know, I wanted to show you an example. The detailed, when you do the expansion to the right in math, is even better than in ELA. This is actually just a sample of what is probably about a dozen different categories within number, sense, and operations. So it takes you right to the standard at strengths and weaknesses, and this is just an example by school. And again, the 3 major categories are algebraic reasoning, geometric reasoning, data analysis, and probability, and number, sense, and operation. This is just a sample of the expansion of number, sense, and operation. So the same level of detail to really key in on where we have some instructional gaps, combined with this is the actual assessment they're going to take at the end of the year. So we're literally getting a preview of what the student can do with opportunity to enhance instruction. So I have to applaud the state on this rollout. I think it's a really nice marriage and an opportunity to really amplify outcomes for kids. And to Mrs. Campbell's question, I'm just going to step out of the way.
Can I ask a quick question before you step away, Dr. Sullivan?
Sure.
So I'm so excited to see that we have access to all of this data. The one thing, given the fact that they're working on mastery of standards for the entire year. Is there any concern with the format that we're focusing too much on teaching to the test? Like if we can go in and we can see that Joey missed question 2 on this progress monitoring, we're going to teach Joey how to answer that question as opposed to teaching the concept?
So let me clarify. We can't see the question.
Okay.
So I can see in the concept that the student missed a lot of questions or just missed a few questions. And so, yeah, that would certainly trigger that concern. That's always a concern, right? When you have a culminating assessment, I have to say for both fast reading and fast math, they are the big bucket skills and concepts that we want students to be successful in. And so they are representing either strengths or deficiencies in pretty common things. We did a match from first progress monitoring against FSA, and it was really aligned, much to my surprise, in terms of us being able to look at the strengths and weaknesses of a student. So a perpetual concern for sure, but I certainly think more information is better. And so that if somebody is struggling for some reason, data and statistics continues to be our downfall.
Right.
I don't understand why, but if that's a student's area, then I can amplify instruction in that space instead of ignoring that deficit. So the information does allow us to strengthen the student's overall skill set, particularly in literacy and numeracy, where they're pretty transformational. So you can't see the question. You can just see it'll show 10 different things and the student got 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, but not what the question was.
Got it. And then a quick follow-up on that, and that is because the test adjusts, right, as the student, depending on student response and how well they're doing, it adjusts. So is it, can we say with pretty good certainty that these students are being offered grade level concepts and being pushed to grow within that, whether they are coming in at low level or they're coming in at high level?
I think that certainty is probably a strong word with the information that's been released at this point. I believe that is the intention of the tool. And so I believe it is designed to assess on grade level standards against the best standards. And so the students are being assessed against it with complete certainty, not being able to see the test. I can't get to complete, but I can get to that is the premise of the assessment.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I ask one quick question? So, because this was a debate that was going on in one of my elementary schools, the students are taking the test and comparing their scores based on the achievement of the others in their grade at the state level or on the amount of knowledge on that, meaning that their fast 1 test would be here,
Yeah.
fast 2 here, fast 3, because I was getting some kids were like, oh, I'm the smartest kid in the world, and they really may not have. Do you see where I'm going?
Yeah, from my interpretation at this point and what we've read, it lives in both criterion reference and norm reference.
Okay.
So it's criterion reference, and there's absolute correct and wrong, and the student's scale score measures that.
Got it.
Separately, the students are getting a percentile rank. That percentile rank, though, isn't generating their score. It's a separate bit of information.
Okay.
When things are a normative result, there's usually this separate year of norming. It's not that. It's just sort of ranking all the students that took it. So it still really is a criterion-based assessment. Yeah, it's a good question because it begs itself to that. The percentile rank that they get is against the state, though. But honestly, that's just kind of a visual for a parent or a teacher to have a ballpark. Really, it's about the standards and the mastery of the standards. So good question. I don't want to do Fast K2 at all.
I'll do it.
So Fast K2 is on a totally different platform. It is on Renaissance, and it is through the old Flickrs. You've heard me speak of Flickrs before. So where the Cambian platform for FAST is very user-friendly, this one is not. and the reports are not as up to
She even
date.
said it with like a low,
But
like this
isn't
one
it, I mean,
is
it's all
not.
Renaissance, right?
Pardon?
No.
It's not all Renaissance K to 6?
No. So K2 is Renaissance. And so what is unique on this platform is I can't get a district comparison. So I can look at each school, but I can't look holistically at Brevard and how we're performing. However, last night on the website, on their platform, they've updated some reports from yesterday. So they're constantly updating and, it's bedtime reading to go on and see what they've done now. So what I have screenshot for you is a prediction of our K2 in prediction to meet the benchmarks in reading. So if you see the bottom in red, if you could expand all that, none of those would be surprising. There are our tier 3 schools that we work with. And you wouldn't be surprised that Freedom 7 is at the top. But again, this is K2, and this is the first reading assessment. This will change with our next progress monitoring, I'm certain, because, and the same thing with our math. I'm going to go to the next slide and just show you what a sample FAST report will look like for a school. So on the left, the math. This is a school. This is one standard. You can see the number of students that fell in the beginning range, the developing, and the secure. We can expand that to, just like in the other, you can expand it down to actual break that student down even further. So you'll see the whole school, and then you can see it by class and teacher. The same thing with ELA. So this is first grade data, just a sample. So you can see the yellow line across the bottom, that is for the school. So the data is not as transparent, I guess is a good way of saying it. It's not as clearly identified as our 3rd through 8th grade data. We can get a whole lot more out of the other than we can with this one, but we continue to grow. I talk to NADA almost every day. What are they telling you? Their website crashes a lot too, just to be honest. So we're struggling a little bit with our K2. So that is what we can get right now. We can also print this by student report. We know that it is a different picture, but we are hopeful that we'll be able to align this better once they continue to develop their website or merge over into the Cambian website. So our teachers are taking it seriously. One really great thing is that our students are used to this because we have used iReady for a number of years. What we're finding out through the Bureau of School Improvement is our K2 data doesn't look as authentic as our 3 through 8 data. So there's some anomalies going on that the state is looking at. And we don't know if it's the test questions or it's the structure, the timing. There's lots of little anomalies. I will tell you, and I'll slip to iReady because this is where I watched it happen. You know, Mr. Cheatham we brought iPads into our kindergarten classroom. So I was able to watch our kindergartners taking iReady with their iPads, with their little headphones. It was amazing that the engagement, they were in it with that little iPad. It was so much easier than sitting there with a laptop that they're using the iPads. One, just to quickly go over our iReady data with you, I always do. But comparing last year and this year, it could almost mirror each other of where we are. We continue to make growth in all areas. Vocabulary still tends to be a struggle, but we are showing improvement in that area. And then I wanted to spend just a minute with you to go over what is available for our Oh, here's our math. I'm hopeful that Reveal will help us in this math. We are still not where we want to be in math, but again, it's almost the exact same data. Our 6% and 6%. I mean, it's, and of course, you know, we can look at this school by school. Very similar to what FAST brings us, and breaking it out, we can see all that in our iReady data. It's just not there yet in our K2 FAST data. And then the tools that are available for our teachers through iReady. They can have, build their own groups. They can batch students into small groups based on their needs. The computer does it for them. It has the different lessons for them. But this toolkit, and I know Mr. Susan always asks about the toolkit. This is the toolkit. And this is a game changer. It's a game changer for parents because I can print the whole list of everything that child needs through this platform. So if you came to me and said, what about, where can I help? The school can print out every component of where the child needs support. We are not seeing alignment with our K2 iReady and the K2 FAST. We are seeing alignment with the 3 through 6 FAST and iReady. So there's something that still needs to be worked out with our K2. And we don't know yet what the state's going to do with the K2 data as we're making it as a baseline year. And so I give it back to Dr. Sullivan.
We're in the home stretch, I promise. So just wanted to highlight a few slides on some of our national metrics. Not all of it's in yet for school year 22, so we will continue to roll out data as it's made available. But lots of promising results. There's a lot of discussion in the national discourse about really catastrophic drops. We're not seeing that in Brevard Public Schools, and I think it's really important to emphasize that because the national discourse may be confusing. So in this first graph, I want to remind our board that in the state of Florida now, all 10th graders and all 11th graders are assessed on a national platform. And Brevard was ahead of that curve. If you recall, we paid for our own ACT or SAT for a lot of years. It is now a state standard, and I'm pleased to say the state does indeed pay for it. So that's been in your little savings bucket now for a while. And so if you take a look at 8th, 9th grade PSAT, I want to mention that because a lot of our AVID programs work with younger students taking the PSAT to get exposed to the content and get those rich data reports that you get from PSAT. And so this is really a subset of students, primarily our AVID students. 10th grade, we test every single 10th grade student on PSAT, as does the state. So this is pretty good comparative data, and you can see a significant difference between Brevard and the state of Florida on PSAT achievement. You know, the graph doesn't quite look as bold as the difference is, but when you see an 890 compared to a 921, that's a pretty substantial difference. And then, of course, our school day SAT administration, that's our March administration for our juniors and their ability, and again, we test all students in that space. Previously, our SAT data was primarily for students who selected to take it on a Saturday. It is now representing all of our students. And again, you can see our significant difference from the state. ERW is our evidence-based reading and writing. So back in the day, we called that verbal. It is now called ERW. And again, you can see our 10th grade data and our SAT results there as well as compared to the state. Next one is math, and math has been an area that we've continued to focus on, particularly in our advanced mathematics and student success in these national assessments. And so you can see, again, in both spaces in 10th grade and our SAT administration, certainly continuing to perform well. I should also mention that all of these results represent improvements from last year as well, and I've sent that to the board. This was worth putting up because we have a unique opportunity because we did administer SAT school year 20, 21, and 22 because we got SAT in March of 20 right before we went on COVID leave. And one of the things that I like to see is that recovery. If you look at nearly all schools, what you're seeing is a recovery to that strong pre-COVID performance. And when you consider what our children have been through with disrupted learning and family trauma and all those issues and the struggles of our teachers, to have a recovery in that short of a time is really a credit to our students, their families, and their teachers, because the kids and families have been through a lot. I'd like to point out a couple of schools, Heritage, Space Coast, and Viera actually had higher results than pre-COVID time. And in a difficult assessment that we all probably have a trauma response to when we took it back in high school, to have results that are even exceeding it is pretty incredible. So what I'm seeing are schools on track for recovery or already in that space. Again, not that testing is everything, but SAT results represent opportunities for our students, and we want to make sure they have the best opportunity available to them as the nation is still continuing to look at SAT as a predictor of success in college.
Dr. Sullivan, before you go on, throw you a lifeline. I believe Rockledge is in that space too. Whenever we leave a school out, we get that,
I thank you so much because I do get that text and email almost immediately after. So thank you, Dr. Mullins, for saving me. Yeah, a lot of good things happening at Rockledge. I also have some advanced placement results for you. You all know that in short order, you'll receive the pretty thick booklet that covers IB, ACE, and AP, but we had AP results ready, so I wanted to go ahead and provide them to the board. As you guys know, we have robust advanced placement programs in most of our schools, and I say most because the other schools have IB or ACE, and so every one of our high schools has a strong college-bound program in addition to dual enrollment. So lots of acceleration opportunity for our kids. So if you look at the number of AP students last year, nearly 4,000 separate students continuing to engage in advanced placement during, again, what was a very difficult year. Those students took over 7,500 different exams. So many of those students, as you can tell, took more than one exam. Over 1,100 kids were designated as AP scholars by College Board. This is a national level of designation based on their success in multiple exams. And 1,100 is an impressive amount of students receiving that national designation. The qualifying scores, those would be scores that were rated a 3, 4, and 5. They don't use the term passing in advanced placement and with College Board, but a 3, 4, or 5 is designated as a qualifying score to get equivalent college credits. And that translated to over 13,000 college credits earned with a return on investment of $2.8 million. One of the things we like to remind our families, whether it is an industry certification, advanced placement credit, IB credit, Cambridge, or dual enrollment, all of those opportunities in Brevard Public Schools are free of charge to our families and translates into real savings. I know at least a couple of you guys are beginning to get those bills, and knowing where those credits count is really a big deal. It also gives students some flexibility in their scheduling, which they find really advantageous. One more slide, and again, there's a lot on this slide, but there's a couple of things I want to key in on. One of the things that we look for when we look at accelerated programs is access and success. So we don't want to gatekeep. We don't want to have really high pass rates, if you will, but low enrollment, meaning that we've really sort of cherry-picked who gets this opportunity. Those days are long gone in Brevard Public Schools. We believe in equitable access and opportunity for our students. And so this graph is giving us a look at percentage participation against performance. And when College Board came to meet with me, the national reps were jumping out of their skin. They literally couldn't contain themselves. I said, we're so excited. We can't wait to see this data. We know you love data, but we all had a huddle at College Board around your data. And I was like, well, that's cool. I like to hear that. And so if you look down, again, at some of our goals to amplify opportunity, access, and success for our students, one of the areas I want to key you in on is if you take a look at our African American students. Participation over the year prior increased by 33.9%, but more so, we also increased success. And that's what you want. When you are doing initiatives that are targeting underrepresented groups, you want to increase access, but you want to increase success as well. And the data there is pretty exciting. Again, we always have more work to do. I tend to turn to the problem, but I wanted to close this with some of the real deliberate work we're doing. We're starting to really see some gains for our students, particularly our students who in previous mindsets may not have gotten all the access to opportunity and the support to be successful. I'm looking forward to when we receive our Cambridge and IB data showing that. Historically, our Cambridge data is our great equalizer. We have a lot of success with our students of diverse backgrounds in that space, so we'll be sharing that as well. And that is all. I'm sure there's no questions.
One of the things, when I taught advanced placement, I taught AP US History, AP Government, right? The first year that I taught it, they didn't bring in, it was during the time when they were trying to bring the lower level readers in and up. So sticking them in an advanced placement class, right, and making them take the test and knowing that they have to take the test. One of the things was my first year, scores off the charts. Second year, Spinner decided he wanted to move in level 1 and 2 readers in there so I could work with them, which is totally fine. But it wasn't reflective on your overall scores. You know what I mean? Do we ever have any cross-sectional data that shows here's what the percentage of the people that were in there? Because when I bounced over to O'Galley and then I came to Viera, I knew the kids that were taking the advanced placement class there were at a different level, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 readers than they were, you know what I mean, over at the other schools. Is there a way to show that sometimes too? Because I do know about the cherry picking, because it went on when I was teaching. They literally would tell kids, no, you're not taking the class, you're not, you know what I mean? Not at Space Coast, but other schools,
Yeah,
so.
for sure. So utilizing performance matters, and we go through an exercise every fall and spring with our schools, looking at the students' data and results and placing them in accelerated spaces. And again, you know, student motivation is really, really important, of course, and access to high quality instruction. So we can certainly put together data that looks at the preceding achievement levels of a student. It'll take me some time.
No, I don't want
it's
you
a lot
to do
of
that.
handwork.
I don't want
I
you to
don't-
do it.
I
I just
don't-
didn't know if it was something that was available.
I don't mind doing that.
No, no. Because
so
what it correlated to was those 1 and 2 levels moved up in there at the time FCAT scores.
Yeah.
They killed the AP scores, but it was better for the school because those came up, which was great,
Well,
right?
what we've seen, I'll use AVID as an example. And so for many of those students that are medium-ish students who have not taken accelerated coursework, AVID, of course, as you know, is that key foundation to push students into that next level and get additional support. The data we've looked at, we did like an 8-year study of AVID's impact on students. And the greatest impact, which includes taking those accelerated courses, was for our level 1 students.
Good.
We certainly saw the benefit to the students in that space. And it's, you know, I'm not going to say everything's for everyone, but opportunities, persistence matter. Some students really don't test well and are incredibly brilliant and committed students with a passion for a subject area. We want those students to take those accelerated platforms. And we're not gatekeeping for percentage rates. We're looking for that sweet spot, like you saw in the data, of yes, we're opening up access, and we believe those students can achieve at high levels. So it's a seesaw. Whenever we're looking at the school data in that accelerated level, we are looking at the number of students enrolled as well, because we can tell pretty quickly if there's a distinction in that. We saw that with algebra. We had really, really, really high pass rates. We opened up the doors. It went down a little bit, but the total number of students succeeding went up exponentially. So, yeah, I may do that one day just because it sounds
No,
fun.
don't do it, 'cause then I got Nolan's
Okay.
yelling at me about extra
Yeah.
work and all this other stuff, so no, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? I will just say thank you. Thank you for the deep dives into the data. Thank you for, the constant focus on making sure that we're getting in there and supporting students to success. To you and your teams, as well as obviously the teachers and, all of the folks out at the school, the administrators and the content specialists. And it's a full team effort, I know, but your leadership is what continues to drive that as a priority. And so I thank you.
We thank you. I just want to end with saying that we celebrate a lot of great work, but it starts in a classroom with that quality teacher who is committed to planning and building that relationship and connecting with that family. And I can't thank our teachers enough for the hours and the days that they spend focusing on the children and the right work. And we come here and we celebrate. But it's that story that starts in VPK and brings them along. So from us, I just thank all of our teachers and our administrators.
Absolutely. I want to thank you, but I also, it's so timely when you see the headlines about how much, supposedly in the States, that the students have dropped down. And you can celebrate here in Brevard that we haven't. We have continued to excel. And so my thanks and best wishes to all the teachers who work their tails off to make this happen. So my thanks to the teachers.
I want to add my acknowledgement and just my commendation to our Leading and Learning team, student services, all of our, certainly leadership at the district level. I'm reminded in these moments of the model of lifelong learner and continuous improvement. And every year, our kids need different supports and different response and different structures and interventions around them. And every year, our leaders come to the table and say, okay, what can we learn from our kids in this moment that we can support our teachers to help them be effective in the classroom? And I just appreciate your leadership, your commitment to being critical thinkers yourselves about how you serve our kids from year to year. Not we're going to do the same thing every year, because our kids aren't the same, particularly over the last couple of years. And then I have to echo, Ms. Klein, your sentiments. It's our teachers who take the supports, take the resources that this team works on so vigorously and says, wow, this is good. This is better than what I had previously, and then utilize it and implement it in the classroom. They take advantage of the interventions and the additional strategies we provide them across the supports. And this is a testament. I have to echo again what we heard today. While the nation is struggling to help kids recover academically, Brevard has beat the odds. And our kids are showing pre-pandemic achievement levels even after this short time, and that is a testament to the dedication of the amazing educators in our classrooms, the leadership in our schools, and our district leadership at the top. So thank you.
Well said, Dr. Mullins. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. All right, we are moving into our board policies, folks. We're going to start with Board Policy 2410, School Health Services. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy? Is there anyone present who wishes to address Board Policy 2410, School Health Services? Does any board member wish to discuss this policy? Next is Board Policy 2416, Student Privacy and Parental Access to Information. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy? Is there anyone present who wishes to address Policy 2416, Student Privacy and Parental Access to Information? Do any board members wish to discuss this policy? Next is Board Policy 2431, Interscholastic Athletics. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy?
Is that you? You're not yet.
Is there anyone present who wishes to address Policy 2431, Interscholastic Athletics?
Should do this.
Any board member wish to discuss this policy?
Yeah, I'd like to. So I wanted to do a couple of quick things real quick. Had a conversation with Dr. Mullins on how to place this thing and move forward. One of the things that I think may have gotten confusing the last time we did this was where the conversation was going and what the meaning behind it was. So in middle school, we're trying to do two separate things combined, and I feel that it's a disservice to the athletic. So what we're doing is we're creating an intramural teams that are also trying to be competitive, and it does a disservice to both. So where I was coming from and wanted to have the discussion wrapped around the last time was to create very highly competitive teams that not only competed against each other inside the district, but also went outside the county, and then expand into the intramurals for the same sports, and I'll tell you why. So currently, when you have a competitive team that plays between each other, and we say you've got to play a certain number of kids and do all those other things, what ends up happening is that limits the amount of children that can play that sport. Whereas if you opened it up, and it's kind of intimidating for many kids to even try it, so you don't see the participation on the intramural side. When you move to the intramural side and open it up and you try to get 8, 9 teams to play basketball or soccer or whatever it is, you have a different style of kid, you teach it a different way, and it's to give them that experience that the district's trying to look for. On the competitive side, the reason that it makes it more of a competitive, and the argument to be more competitive is that, one, we have to prepare our students to play and be in athletic competitions at the high school level. There are many other school districts throughout the state that in middle school have competitive tackle football and other sports that their kids are preparing in a better spot when they move to the high school level. The other thing is the social emotional of students. I mean, everybody knows when you're playing sports and you see some of the children that sometimes, including myself as a young player, was a kid that was wrapped up inside the classroom, needed an outlet. And a lot of the children that are playing, could be playing in the athletic competitions and highly competitive sports in middle school are going to be, they have a couple of extra issues that we might be able to give them an avenue out to get to. It's also a hook to stay in and stay on track. Many of the athletes that we have in high school, we convert into having, we have them that they know that they have to get a 2.0, they have to act appropriately, they have to do all those things. I think that we lose a lot of kids there in the middle school. The other thing that's huge for me is that we're creating without the competitive sports inside the middle school, we also have an equity gap. Right now, in order for students to play specific sports prior to high school, they have to go play in a rec league, and the rec leagues are costing so much money. My daughter alone, her rec league costs over $3,000 a year for soccer, right? There's no way that a lot of the students of disadvantaged economics are able to take advantage of that. So my argument is to create a competitive expansion of sports in the middle school to include other sports and competitive outside the district. And then the intramural side would be the AAU style, you know what I mean, groups, multiple teams that are playing each other and give the experiences there. So I hope that helps clear it up. And when I was talking to Dr. Mullins and what Ms. Campbell had suggested is that we have a reimagined middle school wrapped up going on. So I asked him, I said, would this be better to take this policy and put it into the reimagine and then work it so that they can go talk to the coaches, which was one of the requests, and do the other things, and then come back to the board. Dr. Mullins, and you wanted to kind of talk about that?
Yeah, Mr. Susan and I had a follow-up conversation at the last discussion around this board policy topic, and certainly some of the things that Mr. Susan has proposed would directly impact what the policy would look like depending on what the direction of the board was related to the policy and the direction of middle school athletics. So while we are doing a middle school study and bringing back recommendations to the board for more of the program curriculum implementation of the programming of the school, it seems appropriate to, if we're looking at middle school, look at this at the same time, do a more thorough evaluation of all middle school athletics and bring that back. And I've had a conversation with Ms. Moore about that, certainly follow up with Dr. Sullivan more as we talk about what the reimagine look like. But if we're considering a kind of a redesign of middle school athletics, I'm not opposed to pulling the board policy until such time as I can bring back a more thorough overview of the athletics and what is happening across the state, what are the opportunities, and so on. We're just not prepared to provide any of that information or feedback now or, quite frankly, in the very near future to keep this on the scheduled path. Of course, one of the concerns was, is there something in the policy that needs to change most immediately to align with statute to meet our obligations to the state? And in my conversation with us more, that the primary change is related to training coaches around heat exhaustion, heat stroke, those type of things, signs and indicators. We've actually already implemented that training before this became state law. So in terms of policy directing us to do something that state law is already put into place, that's not necessary because we've already met our responsibilities and obligations to that. So there is not the immediate need to put this policy on the, continue it on its path. So I support pulling it for now and bring back to the board a proposal later related to all things middle school athletics.
And I think that that's the appropriate thing to do, is to make it go through the process. Plus, I wanted to just make a plug. I was up at a couple of school districts meeting with some of their athletic directors that are in the same position as Mr. Ramjet, and he comes very, very highly qualified and regarded among all other athletic directors. So, or people that are in his position. I didn't know, I'm sorry, man, I don't mean to do a selfless plug for you, but I didn't know you were kind of a big deal with all the rest of them, so I really appreciate what you've done. And that probably the most appropriate thing is to utilize our resources to come to that solution. That's all. So thank you.
So I'm hearing that the recommendation from the superintendent is to pull this policy from consideration. Dr. Mullins, is that
Yes,
an
please.
accurate representation? Is any board member opposed to supporting that recommendation?
As long as we're good with the cooling zones, because I know that was legislation from not this session, but I think the previous session. If we're good because we're following the law, even if our policy doesn't say it. And middle school basketball season is ending, or just ended, so our change in the quarters, the minimum of 1 quarter. Did we also implement that already? No, so that would be for next season. Okay. So we've got time. All right. No, I'm fine. That's what he wants.
Okay, great. Do you need a motion to pull that from consideration, Paul, or is it just the superintendent's? Okay. All right, then we will move on to Board Policy 3213, Student Supervision and Welfare. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy? Is there anyone present who wishes to address Policy 3213, Student Supervision and Welfare? Does any board member wish to discuss this policy? Next is Board Policy 5200, Attendance. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy? Is there anyone present who wishes to address Board Policy 5200, Attendance? Is there any board member that wishes to discuss this policy? Next is Board Policy 5710, Student and Parent Legal Guardian Complaints. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy? Ms. Delaney?
Thank you. I oppose this policy. 37 days to bring it to the board is too long, in my opinion. There are things that go on in schools sometimes or in life, that we need immediate action from the people that can do something about it. And sometimes there's an issue like bullying or harassment, or where somebody's in danger. There's many things that could be going on that would require a swift turnaround with consequences or action. So I believe that 37 days is too long, because the policy states that the principal has 7 days to get back to you, and then 30 days after that, and so it just, again, I just think that it's too long. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present that would like to address Board Policy 5710, student and parent legal guardian complaints? Any board member that wishes to discuss Policy 5710?
Sure. Gibbs, is there, can you address the 37, those are, I mean, because obviously those are out.
I think those are outlined in the
Out.
statute as well. Those are our statutory, we have to respond within 30 days. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be 30 days. Within that 30 days of the principal elevating it to the district level, it has to be resolved within 30 days, and we have to notify the parent.
So those numbers came straight out of the statute.
I believe they did, yes.
If I could add, those are specifically related to that particular statute. The other items mentioned, like bullying and harassment, they have totally different processes, and they have different timelines.
And Ms. Moore, are those timelines also established by statute?
They
for
are,
the-
yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak real quick. And I think, Paul, if you can reference it, we as a board, even though it's set as statute at 30, could always pass one that's less than that if we wanted to, because we're not restricting the limit. If we went to 45, it would be illegal, but if we increased the other side, we would be able
You
to.
could decrease the time that the district has to resolve something. You can't increase it. Yeah.
Sure, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. That's all. Thank you.
Any additional board discussion on this policy? Next is Board Policy 5751, parental married status of students. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy? Is there anyone present who wishes to address Board Policy 5751, parental married status of students? Any board member wish to discuss this policy? Next is Board Policy 5780, parent rights, student rights. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy? Is there anyone present who wishes to address Board Policy 5780, parent rights, student rights? Does any board member wish to discuss this policy? Last is Board Policy 6520, payroll deduction. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this policy? Is there anyone present who wishes to address Board Policy 6520, payroll deduction? Is there any board member who wishes to discuss this policy? Ms. Campbell?
Yeah, one little thing, because we talked about this last time, I think Ms. Jenkins brought it up, about the deductions we're having to approve, and so we revised that. But can we take out the comma, because it's still in the second paragraph, second line? The board approves voluntary deductions authorized in writing by the employee. So that because that stops it right there. So we're saying that we preemptively, I don't know if that's the right word, approve deductions that the employee asks for, as long as it's, what the rest of it says, not a substantial hardship.
Right. You want me to restart this process for a comma?
No, but can't we do technical?
I can do a technical change, so you're
change
saying it shouldn't be a
without-
comma there?
Okay, just because that stops the whole point of changing it, which
Right.
is
Yep.
the employee is the one who's making the decision on that. But if we can do that as a, what do you call it, Scrivener's error? Because it probably in the redlining, the comments are there, and if the red line doesn't pick it up. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. If there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Paul, can I see you? Get a chance?